So, imagine standing at the top of a pitch black basement staircase at like 2 in the morning.
Oh, man, nope, absolutely not.
Right. And you're holding this envelope full of cash. And I mean, every single survival instinct you have is just screaming at you to run away.
Yeah, your brain is just saying, danger, danger.
Exactly. But you're there because, well, you paid a complete stranger on the internet to spy on your fiancé.
Which is just a terrifying premise right from the start.
It really is. So how does a seemingly rational person end up voluntarily walking into that kind of nightmare? That's what we're getting into today. We are doing a deep dive into 3 documented real-world accounts from private investigators and their targets.
And, for everyone listening, consider this your official warning. Our mission today is to completely shatter that, glamorous Hollywood illusion of private investigation.
Yeah, because we're looking at what happens when things go off the rails. You hire a PI, and it's kind of like opening Pandora's box.
So that's a great way to put it.
You think you're just paying for a simple answer to a simple question, right? But you might accidentally unleash something completely unhinged.
Yeah, we tend to think of surveillance as this sterile clinical process. Like you hire a professional, they gather the facts, and that's it.
Very black and white.
Right. But these sources we're unpacking today, they really reveal what happens when the lines between observation, paranoia, and, honestly, dangerous obsession just completely blur.
Because, let's be real, most PI work is probably pretty boring.
Oh, undeniably. It's mostly mundane stuff, like sitting in a parked sedan for 12 hours documenting a workers' comp claim.
Right, just drinking cold coffee. But these 3 cases are the absolute extremes. They show us how this simple desire for the truth can just rapidly spiral.
It really can. So where do we start?
Well, let's start with a scenario that kind of flips the script on why someone might even hire an investigator in the first place.
Okay, yeah. Our first source.
Yeah, this case where the PI wasn't actually hired to spy on a cheating spouse or anything like that. He was just hired to deliver a check.
Right, which sounds so simple.
Exactly. But in doing so, he became literally the only shield between his client and this profoundly disturbed individual.
Yeah, so this source centers on a woman, we'll just call her Sue for this.
Okay, Sue.
And at the time of this incident, she was a highly successful young business owner. But her story actually begins years earlier.
Right, back when she was just trying to scrape together some startup capital.
Exactly. She was working as a bartender. And at this bar, she had this regular named Steve.
Okay, tell me about Steve.
So Steve was about a decade older than her. He drove a Corvette, always wore, sharp business attire, even just at a casual bar.
Trying to project that wealth?
Oh, absolutely. And he was notoriously quick to pay for everyone's drinks, throwing cash around.
Wait, okay, so taking money from a bar regular, that immediately sounds less like a standard business investment and more like, I don't know, someone trying to buy ownership of a person.
It is a totally textbook dynamic. Steve used his wealth as a proxy for intimacy.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
He was insisting, daily, that he wanted to invest in Sue's business.
But she held him off for a while, right?
She did. She actually maintained really strong boundaries for a long time. They went on a few dates, but they realized pretty quickly they were better off as friends.
And she kept turning down the money.
Repeatedly. But eventually, her other investors fell through. She basically hit a wall.
So she ran out of options.
Yeah, she ran out of money and reluctantly accepted Steve's capital.
And man, the moment that money changes hands, the whole illusion of the benevolent patron just shatters.
Instantly.
The source notes that Steve became relentlessly abusive, right away. We're talking 24/7 calls, texts.
Right. Because the control he thought he purchased suddenly manifested as this violent jealousy.
Yeah, there's that crazy documented incident. Sue is on a date with someone else, right? And Steve actually tracks them down at a bar. And when her date just casually puts his arm around her, Steve walks right up and knocks the guy unconscious.
Out cold. And what really stands out in the documentation there is the sheer impunity of that act. Steve faced no charges whatsoever.
None.
Nope. Sue attributed it to his wealth and influence, which, of course, only deepened her sense of suffocation. She was trapped.
That is terrifying. She was even waking up to footsteps outside her bedroom, seeing his red pickup truck everywhere she went.
He was completely stalking her. But then, abruptly, it just stops.
Right. Steve vanishes entirely. No calls, no truck, nothing.
So years pass. Sue's business completely takes off. She moves to a new house. She finally has the capital to pay off that initial investment.
Because she just wants total closure.
Exactly. She wants to sever the tie completely. But Steve is just a ghost.
Right. His phone is dead. He has zero social media presence. Even his old rental places and aliases are just dead ends.
So she hires a freelance private investigator. She just wants him to track Steve down, hand him the check, and be done with it.
Wait, so let me get this straight. She hires a PI just to pay off a debt and get some financial peace of mind.
Right.
And this poor PI accidentally uncovers like a literal horror movie set.
Oh, it really is. It's like pulling a loose thread on a sweater and accidentally unraveling a straitjacket.
Seriously. Because right as the PI starts working, Sue experiences this terrifying escalation.
Yeah, she reports that this hooded figure knocked on her door in the middle of the night. Twice.
So the PI sets up a stakeout at her house, and this is where, the reality of the job really hits. It's not glamorous.
No, not at all.
It's sitting in a dark car at 2 a.m., just waiting for a ghost to show up.
And at 2 a.m., the figure actually returns.
Yeah, but he spots the PI and just takes off running into this dense, heavily wooded area near Sue's property.
So the PI, being a professional, waits for sunrise. Then he tracks the footprint trail deep into the woods.
And he doesn't find, like, a sophisticated stalker hideout or surveillance outpost?
No. He finds this tiny, foul-smelling shed. The floor is just covered in beer cans and food wrappers. But sitting right in the center of all this squalor, there's a wheelchair.
This part is so disturbing.
And in the wheelchair is a mannequin. It's dressed in a blonde wig, covered in makeup. The head is visibly battered, like it's been beaten.
Oh, my gosh.
And resting right in the mannequin's lap is an old photograph of Steve and Sue from her bartending days.
That is just pure nightmare fuel. What happened to Steve to get to that point?
Well, psychologically, it is a monument to projection. If we look at the mechanics of Steve's behavior, it's this dramatic regression.
Right, because he lost all his money.
Exactly. When Steve had wealth, his control was sophisticated. He used leverage. But when the money vanished, his ability to play that powerful benefactor vanished too.
Without his finances, he realized he had zero actual worth to her.
Right. So he devolves into this sort of animalistic state just to maintain physical proximity.
Wow, so living in the woods was literally just to be near her because he had no other tools left.
Precisely. And the mannequin serves as this physical avatar. He couldn't control the real Sue anymore. She was independent, successful.
So he created a version of her that was confined to a wheelchair, a version he could actually dominate and abuse.
Yeah. And when the police finally arrived, the hooded figure returned to the shed and actually attacked an officer.
And it was Steve.
It was Steve. He had become a shell of a human. So the PI in this scenario inadvertently acted as this physical barrier between a deeply regressed predator and his prey.
It's wild. In Sue's case, the investigator was a literal shield against this external paranoia.
Absolutely.
But what happens when that dynamic completely inverts?
Oh, this next one is rough.
Yeah, our second source explores a case where the danger flips. The paranoia isn't coming from some stalker in the woods. It's coming from the client paying the bill.
Right. And the quote-unquote professional they hire is actually the threat.
Yes. This brings us to the profound vulnerability of the paranoid mind. We have this client who explicitly admits he has a history of giving into peer pressure.
Yeah, a severe lack of independent critical thinking. I mean, he was once expelled from high school for trying to steal a principal's car simply because he was dared to.
Which says a lot about how easily influenced he is.
Exactly. Fast forward to adulthood, and he becomes convinced his fiancée might be cheating on him.
And instead of just talking to her about it, he seeks out validation from these toxic friends. They feed his anxiety until it literally ruins his sleep and appetite.
He is desperate for absolute certainty. So logically, he goes to Craigslist to hire a private investigator.
Right, Craigslist, the pinnacle of professional surveillance.
I mean, desperation disables our internal threat detection. Scammers completely rely on this.
So the client finds this man named Shane. They agree to meet in a public park. And the meetup is just a masterclass in glaring red flags.
Oh, completely. The client is expecting a sharp professional.
Right. Yeah. And he gets Shane, this overweight guy in beat-up sweatpants, accompanied by his equally unprofessional girlfriend or coworker, Gabby.
And Shane actually claims the sweatpants help them, quote, blend in.
Blending in at a park, maybe, but as a PI? Come on. Then Shane starts asking these weirdly intimate, personal questions that have absolutely nothing to do with marital surveillance.
Right. And then he demands an upfront cash payment to keep the whole operation off the books.
And then he just disappears for a week.
But the sweatpants, the inappropriate questions, the cash demand, those weren't signs of incompetence.
No.
No, they were a deliberate filter, much like those intentional typos you see in phishing emails. Shane was testing the waters.
Oh, wow. So he needed to see exactly how compliant and irrational this client actually was.
Exactly. If a client accepts the sweatpants and hands over untraceable cash in a park, they're signaling that their logic has been entirely compromised by their emotional distress.
That makes the next move so much more sinister. A week later, at 1:16 a.m., the client gets a text from an unknown number.
It's Shane.
Yeah. He claims he has news of vital importance that absolutely cannot wait until morning, and he demands the client bring the rest of the cash to a specific address immediately.
Which, you have to consider the client's reality in that exact moment.
Right.
His fiancée is asleep in the bed right next to him. She's been home all day. Rationally, there is no active surveillance emergency happening at 1:16 in the morning.
It's so absurd. It's like using WebMD for your relationship.
Oh, totally.
You go in with a mild anxiety, you let panic completely take the wheel, and you end up diagnosing yourself with a terminal catastrophe.
Or in this case, almost walking into a literal basement trap.
Exactly. Why do we let our anxieties completely override such massive, glaring red flags?
Because the anxiety demands resolution so fiercely. The client is in so much pain from not knowing that he actually gets in his car and drives 10 minutes to this address.
And it's a visibly abandoned, dark house. Shane texts him. Doors open.
So he walks into a pitch-black house alone. And a follow-up text directs him to the basement door on the far left. And this is the moment where the psychological tension just peaks.
He is standing at the top of a staircase, just staring into a pitch-black void.
It really makes you wonder, like, how far into the dark would you actually walk just to satisfy a suspicion?
Thank goodness his survival instinct finally kicked in. It overrides his confirmation bias, and he just freezes.
Yeah. And then a final text from Shane taunts him. It says, "Are you coming down, or are you just going to stand there all night?"
Creepy.
So the client bolts, he runs to his car and just speeds away.
And he gets one last chilling message. Good for you, buddy. Take care.
Ugh.
Then the number disconnects and the Craigslist ad vanishes.
Good for you, buddy. It's such a chilling acknowledgement. The predator realizes the prey woke up from their cognitive fog just in time.
Shane wasn't an investigator at all.
Not even a little bit. He was a predator, specifically hunting for people whose desperation made them pliant.
So, okay, the Craigslist scammer was a pure predator preying on internal paranoia. But there's a third scenario in our sources today.
Arguably the most unsettling one.
I think so too. Because what happens when the paranoia is aimed outward and the client actually manages to manipulate a legitimate, licensed professional to do their stalking for them?
Yeah, this one really explores the ethical tightrope of the entire surveillance industry.
It shows how the legal tools of observation can just be completely weaponized.
Right. So this source takes place in 2020. A woman moves to a new city right around the time of the shutdown.
Feeling totally isolated, obviously.
Yeah, so she casually turns to dating apps just to establish some human connection, meet people. She goes on a few dates with a man named Wade.
And on paper, Wade checks all the boxes. He's handsome, he's smart. But the woman senses something is off.
Her intuition flares up.
Exactly. So she establishes a boundary, breaks it off, and they just kind of fizzle out.
Which is a perfectly normal interaction. You go on a date, it doesn't work out, you move on.
Right. But weeks later, a gray SUV with heavily tinted windows begins parking outside her house every single night.
And it doesn't stop there.
No. She goes to the grocery store, spots the same SUV parked right next to her car, and she sees this tall man with slicked back hair and sunglasses staring directly at her.
Which is terrifying.
Then it escalates again. She goes on a coffee date with a new, charming guy named Paul. She looks out the cafe window, and the gray SUV is idling across the street.
He tracked her there.
Yes. She looks across the cafe, and the man with the slicked back hair is literally sitting in the corner.
Oh, man.
She panics, flees the cafe, and has to take evasive driving maneuvers just to get home safely.
Because she knows she's being followed.
Exactly. She tells Paul everything, and he convinces her to finally call the police.
So the police arrive, and they actually confront the man in the gray SUV right outside her house.
But the twist here is wild. The man doesn't flee.
No, he remains entirely calm. He rolls down his window, and he produces a badge.
He shows his credentials to the officers. He is a fully licensed, legitimate private investigator. This completely flips the script.
It does. Wade, the guy she rejected after just a couple of casual dates, hired a legitimate PI to stalk her.
But wait, how does a licensed professional agree to take that case?
Well, to convince him, Wade had to construct a very specific lie. He told the investigator that he and the woman were in a committed, long-term relationship, and he suspected her of infidelity.
Oh, wow. So it's like hiring a hitman who turns out to be an undercover cop. The client tried to weaponize the system, but the system actually worked to protect the victim in the end.
Exactly.
But why couldn't the police just arrest the PI or Roe Wade right then and there?
Because of the really tricky legal parameters around surveillance and stalking.
Oh, right.
A licensed PI sitting in a public street or a public cafe just observing someone is not inherently committing a crime. Public photography and observation are legally protected.
That is so frustrating.
And furthermore, for the police to act on stalking laws, there usually needs to be a demonstrated pattern of a credible threat or physical violence.
Yeah.
At that exact moment, it was just a quote-unquote he said, she said situation involving a licensed professional operating in public spaces.
Which is terrifying for her because the information that PI was gathering, her routines, who she dates, her exact locations, that is exactly the data a stalker needs to strike.
Precisely. And that is exactly what Wade attempts to do with it.
Right. Weeks later, the woman is hiking in a state park with Paul, and Wade literally sprints out of the woods, screaming about her being unfaithful, and tries to physically grab her.
Thank goodness Paul was there.
Yeah, Paul actually tackles Wade to the ground and stands his ground until Wade finally retreats.
But even when the police are called after that attack in the woods, they still hesitate.
Why? He attacked her.
Because without neutral witnesses, domestic disputes often get trapped in this sort of bureaucratic limbo. The legal system was really struggling to protect her.
But this is where the private investigator steps back in, right?
Yes. This is where critical thinking supersedes the paycheck. The PI did exactly what he was hired to do initially. He gathered data.
But the data didn't match Wade's story.
Exactly. As he analyzed her routine, there was zero evidence of a committed relationship with Wade. The PI recognized that Wade was unstable. In fact, the source notes that the PI actually warned Wade to stay away from her before that attack in the woods even happened.
Wow. So when the police hesitated after the assault, the PI voluntarily went to the authorities.
He testified on the woman's behalf against his own client.
That is amazing.
It is. His professional testimony completely dismantled Wade's lie and provided the concrete evidence the police needed to secure a restraining order.
And then Wade just deletes all his social media and vanishes.
A lesser investigator would have simply handed over the surveillance file, collected their fee, and walked away claiming, hey, I was just doing my job.
Right, totally washing their hands of it.
But by refusing to be a blind instrument of control, the PI became her unexpected savior. It really proves that observation without ethical analysis is simply stalking by proxy.
Absolutely. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? If we synthesize these three accounts, it's pretty clear that the world of private investigation is basically a magnifying glass placed directly over the absolute messiest parts of human nature.
Oh, without a doubt. Trust, obsession, paranoia. It's all there.
We've seen a PI uncover a primal obsession in a shed in the woods. We've seen a predator use the illusion of an investigation to lure a desperate man into a dark basement.
And we've seen how easily a false narrative can aim a licensed professional right at an innocent person.
For you, these stories serve as a stark reminder of just how fragile privacy really is.
They illustrate how quickly someone else's unhinged internal narrative can violently crash right into your quiet life.
Whether it's an ex-friend whose wealth evaporated, an online scammer, or just someone you rejected on a casual dating app.
Yeah, you never really know who is fixating on you.
And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. All of the terrifying invasions of privacy we unpacked today happened in the physical world.
Right, very tangible things.
The guy living in a shed in the woods, a fake ad leading to a physical basement, a gray SUV parked outside your actual house. If that is what physical surveillance looks like, what does the modern equivalent look like today?
Oh man, we have to consider the digital footprint.
Exactly. Your entire life, your daily routines, your financial purchases, your exact real-time location is constantly trackable online.
Data brokers package it up, location tags, broadcast it to anyone who knows how to look.
So, how much of your daily life is currently being investigated? How many algorithms and complete strangers are essentially running surveillance on you right now without a private investigator ever having to leave their desk to warn you?
It's wild to think about. You carry the magnifying glass in your pocket every single day.
You really do. You never know who is looking at the data of your life or what they plan to do with the patterns they find.
That is a deeply chilling perspective to end on. Remember, you always have to question who is observing you, and more importantly, why.